Hello and welcome to today's exciting live stream extravaganza. I suppose it maybe won't be that exciting, but anyway, I'm excited, and let me show you why. This is a new book, and you'll notice that it has a name you might recognize down there at the bottom. If you don't know who I am, that's me, Lucas Kitchen. This is a proof, of course, that's why this banner is here, but you can see more clearly what it looks like by taking a look at this screen. This is, I noticed I put a space in there I shouldn't have, For the Sake of the King. Now you can take a look at this book. You can read a number of chapters for free by going to freegrace.in. That's our website, freegrace.in. Now what I want to do is tell you a little bit about this book, and then I want to give you a free sample or free listening to this book. So I currently have a professional voice actor working on the audio book, but in lieu of that, until we get that back, I put together a few chapters of me reading the book for you. Now let me just tell you about this book. I've been chasing this story for years. Sometimes you'll hear writers say that sort of thing, and what it just means is I've been getting it wrong a long time. So I had this idea years ago of writing a fiction story, kind of in the maybe sort of the pseudo-fantasy style, maybe somewhat sci-fi, writing a story like that, but set in the future kingdom of heaven. Now, you don't have to know anything about the future kingdom of heaven or kingdom of God or anything to recognize that it is. But for those that don't know anything about it, they may not even realize that's what this book is until a ways into it. So this book is sort of a slow burn in that it kind of eases the reader into realizing what this mysterious world is. Now, clearly I'm telling you, I'm probably ruining the surprise for you, but I'm telling you because I think most of the people that I'm personally connected with would be excited about knowing that that's what this story is. So that's what the story is. It takes place in the future, a number of centuries in the future, and the main character is a young man named Avis. Now let me read this little tagline up here at the top that says something I think pretty fun. Think about this for a second. He will remember his first 1,000 years for the rest of his life. Ooh, kind of exciting. So anyway, it's a fiction book, a solidly Christian fiction book. If you're a dispensationalist, by the way, it's solidly dispensational, but that makes it sound dry. It's a fantasy style story set in the exciting future kingdom of heaven, or sometimes the Bible calls it the kingdom of God. So now let me tell you why I'm making books like this. This book is designed to bring in readers that maybe aren't going to read a theology book, right? I mean, if I wrote a book about the kingdom of heaven and it was a theology book and it felt like a sermon, there's a lot of people that wouldn't read it. But my thought was that there are people that read fiction and they read nothing else. And I want to reach into those brains. I want to reach into those brains and put in ideas. And so that's what this book is all about, is just connecting and reaching people that maybe wouldn't read some of our other books. Okay. Without any ado more than that, I want to I'm just going to play the audio that I've got so far. I think I've got about 13 chapters. I'm just going to let it roll and probably go have lunch, but it's just going to stream through them. So you get to listen to me reading the first number of chapters of this book. Now, you're not going to get to hear the whole book in this video, by the way, because I didn't record the whole book, but also if you want to get your hands on it, you're going to have to buy a copy. By the way, you can pre-order the Kindle version on Amazon, but you can actually order a paperback version from our website or from Amazon currently. It doesn't officially come out till January, so you probably won't get it until January if you were to order it, but you can. All right, let's jump to it. Here is what's it called? Oh yeah, For the Sake of the King. Here we go. This is For the Sake of the King by Lucas Kitchen, narrated by the author. Chapter 1. The Broadcast. Avis stepped cautiously through the garden, which was bathed in dusky light. He hummed softly against the whistling breeze and giggled at the funny shape of the bouncing melody. He let the music rise, adding humor with every note. The original composition bubbled with life and movement. He could hear it taking shape in his mind. Laughable lyrics dropped into place almost without thought. As he dug his hands into the earth, he was careful not to harm the stalks of the grafted vegetable fruits. He sang the funny little tune as he excavated his family's garden dinner. Your gummy gods, our garden grows. 'Tis time to rise from that dirt bed. My tummy speaks with a loud groan. You're fruity fat, my family is fed. The humor of his song stretched a wide smile across his face. He tugged on a row of apricot carrots. After pulling them into the cool evening air, he knocked the dirt free from each and lined them up in a perfect row. They were delicate, but their flavor was worth the caution. He knew the family would want dozens, but his 2 hands limited the amount he could carry at once. He gathered as many as he could. "Avi, come on," his father called. "It's almost time." "Yes, father." "Do you need a hand?" his dad asked as he walked in Avi's direction through the lush plantation of blooming ground fruits. He stepped over the patch of ivy grapes and tiptoed through the berry grass toward his son. Garden gatherings heaped across his arms as high as his chin. 1 apricot carrot fell from Avi's grasp. He spun quickly and bobbled the veggie fruit with his sneakered foot before kicking it to his dad. "I guess I should have asked, do you need a foot?" They laughed. "What do you pick, Avi?" Margaret said as she erupted from the back door of the cabin, barefoot and wild. She didn't traverse the garden so delicately as her father and brother. She charged through the budding edibles, blundering carelessly atop the waving berry grass. Avi's little sister was full of everything wonderful and free, a genuine reflection of the splendor in the world. She bounced to see all the garden goodies Avi carried. Their dad handed Margaret the stray apricot carrot. Avi had kicked to him. She couldn't wait. "Oh, sweet," she said, biting deep. They walked around and turned to the front of the little cabin. It was like entering a realm of warm, noisy chaos. Avi set down a load of apricot carrots and went back for more. As Avi went, his giant family was still arriving in the front orchard like every Sabbath. Avi's siblings that still lived at the farm ran circles around the outside of the tiny house. A few of his older brothers and sisters who had begun new branches of the family tree had come. Alicia and Sasha had brought their very full quivers. Jay, one of Avi's oldest brothers, nearly 60 years his senior, had come with his kids. Grandpa Rohan, Great-Grandpa Kieran, and Great-Great-Grandpa Neil were there with many of their family members. This was the most grandfathers at a gathering in over a month. The 4 generations of Malik men all looked so similar, and now even Avi, who would reach prime age before long, was taking on that familiar Malik look. He dropped another armload of garden harvest on the pile. "It's almost time," called Kieran. 15 more minutes, you old bat," his wife, Great-Grandma Sonia, called out, poking fun at him. "Hey, he's not old. He's only 250, called Great-Great-Grandpa Neil from where he leaned against the railing of the porch. He counted on his fingers. "We'll be ancient by the time you count up his age," Grandpa Rohan grumbled. "Well, he's 200 and something anyway." "That's nothing," Neil boasted. He had been nearly 100 when Kieran was born, and he often liked to remind everyone that he had the greatest number of years behind him and seniority to prove it. The entire family debated Great-Grandpa Kieran's age. Kieran just smiled with crossed arms and kept happily quiet. "Got your goat?" Margaret shouted, with her mouth still half full of apricot carrots. She ran by and slapped Great-Great-Grandpa Neil on the leg before leaping from the porch and sprinting for all she was worth. She giggled deviously as she darted away into the growing shadows of the orchard. Got Your Goat wasn't just an invitation to play. It was an all-out challenge. Great-Great-Grandpa Neil spiraled with the speed of spring lightning. He placed his hands on the porch railing and vaulted with an acrobatic somersault up and over. His jump carried him from the porch across most of the yard. By the time his feet hit the ground, he was running. Before he could close the gap, Margaret squealed as she leapt into one of the orchard trees. She climbed like a spider monkey and took refuge in the highest wispy branches. With one mighty bound, surmounting all the altitude she had gained, her great-great-grandpa sprang into the tree and tagged her foot. "Got your goat?" he said, as he hung by one hand from a tree branch. He then let go and dropped the full distance to the ground. In an attempt to outdo one another, each grandpa entered the fray. They performed incredible maneuvers, bringing wild competition to the children's game. Even Avi's dad didn't miss the opportunity to join in. Avi watched for a second as he dropped another load of strawberry potatoes into the growing pile. It was reassuring to see the fathers of all ages flit around the yard with their scores of descendants. The game was simple: tag and run for cover. The adults who played would slow enough to include the kids every few rounds before returning to their acrobatic feats of evasion and advance. Got Your Goat was a favorite because it could include as many players as were available. The more that entered the game, the happier the chaos grew. Bodies bounced, bounded, and bolted across the yard with savage abandon. The screams and shouts of joy likely echoed all over Tamesh province. Avi dropped his last load of garden-plucked produce. Being so engrossed in the game, no one had noticed the buffet he'd prepared. He watched for a few minutes before he called out, "Dinner's ready!" Almost before the words were out of his mouth, the game dissolved and the crowd rushed toward the supper pile. The swarm descended, each grabbing up handfuls of veggie fruits. Great-Grandpa said a blessing before they filled their mouths. The joy of partaking in the latest Malik garden hybrid surpassed Got Your Goat. The apricot carrots were an apparent success, judging by the effusive compliments to the gardener. The full mouths of their guests brought quiet serenity to the scene. 3 minutes, Avi's father called. "I can't wait," little Lila said. The other kids agreed as they smacked with satisfied mouths. "What do you think he will talk about tonight?" Margaret asked, still breathing hard. Avi waited to grab his dinner until he was sure everyone else had their fill. Leaning his back against the cabin wall, he sat. Margaret nestled next to Avi's regular spot, which had worn smooth from years of use. He bit into the apricot carrot as he settled in. Once he was still, Margaret scooted as close to him as she could. It wasn't long before the other youngsters flooded in. "I hope he tells some stories," Jamesh said, squeezing in between Avi and Margaret. She always jockeyed for the closest spot to their patient big brother. "Course he'll tell stories," Lila said. "Hope he does 50 stories, David said. Avi smiled at their excited banter, which would likely continue until the broadcast began. Margaret had not received the answer she was looking for. She tugged Avi again, asking, "What do you think he'll talk about, Avi?" Margaret said, "I bet he'll tell a few stories, give an update on the interplanetary project, and," Avi said before the children grew too impatient. "Do you think he'll teach a new song?" Lila interrupted. "Maybe so," Avi said. He didn't portray his own feelings on the matter, but Avi hoped for a song. That was his favorite part of the broadcasts. The Emperor had the most amazing voice. Avi especially liked it when the governor sang along. "It's starting!" Margaret shouted. "The broadcast, it's starting!" The other kids echoed her tone in their own words, sounding like a flock of chicks. The great and great-great-grandpas laid out in the orchard with a half-dozen kids around them. Grandpa Rohan and Grandma Priya, there with a scad of kids and grandkids, sat on the porch looking up at the sky. Avi's mom and dad came and sat by him, and the surrounding flock of children. the aurora of deep emerald laced with fringes of purple and stretched across the sky. The clouds drifted apart, riding the orange ribbon of atmosphere. Vibrant iridescence washed across the heavenly backdrop. Sky-bound colors lit 100 faces in the malic orchard, all peering eagerly upward. The borealis wove and braided new hues into itself as it spread wide across the milky dusk. It rippled and curled as it painted the air above. It seemed close enough to touch. The luminous saturation was beautiful, but it wasn't the primary allure. The ground shook gently, and the air crackled with excitement. They could feel the vibration coming from the earth, the trees, the rocks. The sound emanated from every surface and surrounded them in its warm embrace. Then came the familiar voice, echoing through the skies like thunder, across the ground like an earthquake of words. The voice radiated through the air and the earth. His Majesty's weekly broadcast had begun. Chapter 2. Arrangement. "But I don't understand," Jamesh said after the broadcast had concluded. "Dusk happens at a different time depending on where in the Empire you are, right?" "That's right," Avis said. He glanced at his father, seeing if he wanted to answer the questions. His dad watched, but said nothing. "Then not everyone in the kingdom hears it at the same time," Jamesh said. "Of course not," Margaret interjected. "But how?" Jamesh trailed off, not having the vocabulary to express his curiosity. "How does everyone hear it at dusk?" Avi offered. "I'm actually not sure." He looked to his father. "Dad, how does that work?" "The broadcast starts in the capital and transmits west. It drifts around the entire kingdom, riding the line of dusk so that all citizens hear it at the same time relative to their own day. It always arrives at sundown on Sabbath." "How does it drift the right speed?" Avi asked, now interested. The kids watched as their older teenage brother and their wise father discussed matters beyond their capacities. His dad was about to answer, but another voice cut in. "Some people think it travels at the speed of sound, but the math doesn't work," Karina, his slightly older twin, said. She came to sit next to their father. "Oh, is that right?" their father said, wrapping his arm around her. "Nope," she said, raising her hands for illustrative purposes. "The broadcast decreases speed curvilinearly. My theory is that ionized particles on an upper stratospheric jet stream excite the troposphere as they interface with the magnetic field of the Earth, though no one seems to share my theory." "I do," little Margaret said. "Me too," echoed a half-dozen of the children. "Yeah," Avi said. "Me too, but only because I don't understand what you're talking about." They laughed. Karina shoved Avi's shoulder. "Where have you been?" their mother asked in Karina's direction. "I was at the Patels," Karina said. Avi leaned forward. She looked at him and said, "Yes, Amelie was there." "I didn't ask if—" Avi trailed off, leaning back, ducking his head and trying to hide his blush. His father glanced at Avi for a moment, probably reading him. "Got your goat!" Jameis shouted as he slapped Karina's arm. He jumped up and ran for cover as Karina, who had missed the earlier match, sprang up and charged after him. The wave of kids followed in their wake. Avi's mother followed less vigorously on account of her pregnancy, but his dad stayed next to him on the porch. Avi could feel the question coming. "So Amelie is a nice girl?" his father probed. "Yeah, I guess so," Avi said. "Have you talked to her about how you feel?" his dad asked. "Dad," he said, "I mean, I don't even—" He stalled out, then drooped his head between his knees. He picked a loose splinter on a porch plank. "I can't." "But you want to?" "Well, yeah," Avi said. "But no." "Why?" his dad asked. "Because," he said, "she's a Patel. I mean, she's Nimit's daughter. What's wrong with that? His father asked. Nimit Patel is a good man. Yeah, too good, Avi whispered, just quiet enough for his dad to miss it. He threw the splinter over the edge of the porch. Avi, you know you're coming to the age where if you want to, you could. Dad, I know, he said. I want to help you. What can I do? His dad asked. Avi stroked his forehead with the back of his hand. He let his voice fall to a whisper. Could you arrange it? Avi asked. His father rubbed his chin as he leaned back with a smile. Ah, I see, his father said. An arranged marriage. Yeah, Ria had her dad arrange her marriage, and the Amin boys all did arrangements, and in Indale almost everyone marries by arrangement, Avi said. Yes, you're right, his dad said. There is a kind of simplicity to it. Yes, and I think that she's the prettiest girl, and I want to talk to her, but my tongue gets tied up in knots when I'm around her, and it seems like her dad wants her to marry one of Deepak Bankshi's boys, and if you wait too long, Dad, it will be too late. Avi rambled. You've thought about this a lot, haven't you? His dad asked. But you made it sound like you haven't spoken to Amelie before. At that, Avi shut his eyes and pressed his lips into a tight, thin line. He did not like this. He did not like this at all. Not even once, son? No. I tell you what, his dad said. Avi looked up from the drooping posture. Let me think about it. Avi smiled. Really? Avi asked. Well, if she's the prettiest girl in Sundar, we should at least consider it, shouldn't we? His dad said. Well, yes, of course. You know, on festival days, she's always the best dressed, and her singing voice is not too bad. Also, I think her hair is nice to look at, and Avi trailed off, lost in the vision of her. Anything else, son? His dad asked with a grin. Avi looked up suddenly. Oh, she has good teeth? Avi said. I mean when she smiles, but I haven't seen her smile much. So she's pretty, dresses well, sings kind of okay, and sports promising choppers on the rare occasion that she smiles, his dad said. Avi laughed awkwardly. Well, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more to her than that, but I guess I'll have to get to know her a bit before I really know her, I guess, Avi said. And you'd have plenty of time to get to know her once you're married forever, right? Yeah. Well, let's sleep on it and we can talk it over tomorrow, he said. Thanks, Dad, Avi replied. His father stood and patted him on the head as he walked out under the stars. Most of the children were sleeping in the grass, bunched tightly around the grand and great-grandfathers. Avi cast his eyes toward the milky swath that painted the sky with a chalky haze. As he listened to the nighttime noises and watched his multi-generational family slumbering in the cool evening air, he couldn't help but whisper a silent prayer of thanks. Chapter 3. A Call to Go. Avi was up earlier than most, though the youngest kids woke long before the sun. He circled to the rear of the house, where most of the morning foods grew. He grazed the garden for something exciting to eat. The fields beyond encircled the small estate and were crowded with grains. The golden sea of wheat bowed like obedient waves as the wind tickled each stalk. A 10-pace circle of fruit and berry garden rimmed the wheat field. He could hear some children playing on the far side of the crop, where the forest met the farm. He squinted against the glare. Bora, Avi called when he caught sight of the family bear. The massive grizzly, as friendly as a babbling brook, was tiptoeing through the garden. At hearing his name, he stopped precariously, perched on 3 paws, acting as if stillness made him invisible to his human companion. The indolent bear let out a guttural moan. The garden rules were nearly too much for the beast to bear. Avi repeated the phrase he'd said 1,000 times to the harmless old loaf. Veggie fruits first, Bora,
Then you can have all the sweet drips you want.
The bear groaned more, but turned lumberingly toward the patch with his head held low. Avi could hardly stand to see his furry friend in such low spirits.
Buddha, wait,
Avi said. Coming up beside him, Avi reached for the bear's massive neck, wrapped his arms around him, and gave him a hearty scratch around the shoulders. The giant bear erupted with a roar of pleasure as Avi dug his fingers deep into the bear's tawny fur. After a few minutes of affection, Avi patted Bora on the neck and sent him toward the vegetables.
Avi?
A voice came from behind him. He spun, allowing his eyes to adjust after looking into the sun's golden beams.
Uncle Ratchet,
Avi said. Ratchet was a robust man, with dark eyes and sharply trimmed beard. He perpetually wore the look of a man ready for an adventure. He was always dressed for a long hike in the mountains, even though the closest mountains were, well, Avi didn't know where any mountains were. He'd never seen them. Ratchet's ready appearance stood in contrast to Avi's, who was well-kempt, almost to a fault. Avi and Ratchet looked as different as two could, while still bearing a mild family resemblance. Ratchet was the much older brother of Avi's father. There was something comforting about having Ratchet around. They had spent time together every week since Avi could remember.
I woke with that song in my head, but I can't remember the words. I came straight over,
Ratchet said with the brawny voice of a man his size.
What song? The one you wrote for Janelle to sing, the one they did last night.
Ratchet bent and helped himself to a handful of cauliflower tops. He had no reservation about talking with his mouth full.
You know, the one about the king.
Ratchet hummed as Avi knelt to pluck a dozen spinach leaves. Ratchet's singing sounded like a wobbly wheel on an apple cart, but Avi caught the melody.
What makes you think I wrote it?
Avi asked. He kept his compositions anonymous. Ratchet was the only one who knew Avi's secret. Of all the people that could be let in on the confidential truth, he wished Uncle Ratchet was on the outside of this one.
Come on, Ratchet bellowed. You don't think I can pick out an Avi original when I hear one?
He smacked as he spoke.
It has your handiwork all over it. Sticky melody so catchy it digs its way into my ear and won't come out for weeks. Lyrics that paint a picture in my mind. Plus, I've never once heard anyone use the word hallowed but you.
At that, Avi smiled, not able to keep the ruse.
Okay, yes, but, Avi began. I know. It's our secret. Does Janelle know that the songs come from you?
Ratchet said as he bit into another stalk.
I mean, do you sing them for him, or?
I write them down and leave them on his... Avi paused and looked around. No, I'm not going to say any more.
You should sing your songs at the gatherings. I mean, the choir is fine and Janelle is good enough, but it'd be better if the songwriter was available to perform them every once in a while.
Oh, Avi said, choking on a handful of berries. Are you kidding?
No, it would...
Not a chance, Avi said. Uncle Ratchet raised an eyebrow and watched his nephew. They need not hear me croak. I sing like a frog in a monsoon, Avi said.
Well, I guess I'll have to do the singing,
Ratchet said. He placed a hand on his chest and the other in the air as he tried to belt out a loud rendition of one of Avi's supposedly anonymous songs. Avi hushed him. You'll wake the grands, Avi said. Ratchet stopped, but waved Avi's concern away with the sweep of a big hand.
Ah, they ought to wake up,
Avi said, as he shoveled in another full mouth of greens.
How are you ever going to become the village sing poet if you don't let anyone hear your songs?
I let people hear my songs, Avi said.
Your kid sister don't count as people.
I'll have to let them know that you don't think they are people. Margaret and Tanis will probably have something to say about that, Avi laughed.
You keep changing the subject. I came here to ask about your song, which no people know is your song. Could you sing a few bars of it? I'm butchering the tune, but it's stuck in my head, all broken up and wobbly. Please set it straight, Ratchet said. At the thought of singing, even for an uncle, his heart raced. He tried to hide the increase in his breathing. After a moment that felt like a kingdom age, Ratchet released him.
Well, it's a fantastic song. I think even the Emperor would be impressed. Maybe you could have it recorded and let the delegation present it to him at this year's feast,
Ratchet said with a note of fantasy. He clearly considered it an outlandish idea, although the thought filled Avi with a sense of wonderment. Would the king really find my work worthy? No, of course not. It was ridiculous.
That's not going to happen, Avi said. But it would be an honor just to be chosen for the delegation.
Avi tossed the spinach into his open mouth as he inclined his head to hide the red that was drifting up his cheeks. Ratchet huffed at the idea, as if it were funny. He was flapping his shirt like a billow.
I've been here for 194 years, and I've only been chosen once,
Ratchet said with a laugh that could peel the paint off the house.
With the way the population is exploding, you'll be 5 times my age before you're chosen. Besides, you have duties here. If you left, who would secretly write songs for the Singport to perform at village gatherings?
Ratchet said.
What are you talking about? Doesn't Janil write his own songs?
Avi asked, trying to put the secret back in the box.
Come off it,
Ratchet fired back.
Everyone knows that old crow never wrote a poetic line in his 500 years.
Avi didn't take the bait. His mind was somewhere else.
When your delegation arrived in the capital, what was it like?
Avi asked. He remembered the day that Ratchet had been chosen for the capital delegation, but they had never discussed it, though it was not for lack of trying. Avi had questioned him many times, but Ratchet was ever so tight-lipped about it. Avi clasped his hands together, begging. Suddenly, Ratchet grew strangely taciturn.
I guess we both have our secrets, don't we?
Avi ventured. Ratchet looked at the sky, then at the tree line. Anywhere but Avi.
Why don't you tell me about the king's city? Isn't that the point of having delegates to bring back inspiring stories?
Avi asked, but Ratchet pretended to be distracted. It was a diversion too convenient. Uncle Ratchet backed toward the road, as if he would leave.
I've told you a dozen times I don't want to talk about it,
Ratchet said as he moved toward the road.
Why not?
Avi asked once more.
If you're so interested, you could make pilgrimage,
Ratchet said.
1 million people a day do it.
Oh, no, I couldn't, Avi said.
Yes, you could. Maybe the trip would loosen that tongue of yours.
It's too much money.
Nonsense, Ratchet blasted. I'd pay your way in exchange for a song, just one song sung in front of the village, all expenses.
Avi's eyes fixed unblinkingly on Ratchet for a long few seconds. Was he serious? It didn't matter. There was no way.
One of these days you'll have a decision to make. It'll be between the eggshell comfort of secrecy and the absolute pleasure of using what you were given to serve others.
Wow, Avis said.
Yeah, see, I can be poetic too,
Ratchet said.
I'm impressed.
Don't be, Ratchet amended. I heard that on a broadcast a few years ago. I've been saving it up for the right moment. Hope you liked it.
It was tasty,
Avis said. But it's something to think about. You've got something special, and if you keep hiding, before long, it'll be a habit very hard to break.
I just can't, Avis said.
Now, what is it that could make the most talented kid in Sundar also the most insecure? Ratchet said.
I wouldn't know, Avi said.
No, I don't suppose you would,
Ratchet echoed. Avi could feel Ratchet's eyes on the side of his head. The intensity was uncomfortable.
Man, you need to get out of here for a while.
What?
Avi said.
You need an adventure. This garden grows, but you are wilting.
What do you mean?
Avi asked.
I've got everything I need here. Why would I ever need more than Sundar?
Well, it's fine with me if you stay here and piddle with plants, humming like a bird to no one but the fruits. I will eat up the fruits of that labor, but I'm telling you, you need an adventure.
or pilgrimage, or maybe a good knock on the head.
Well, I don't know, Avi said.
Well, I do. But there's no use arguing with you. I might as well try to convince that old overgrown bear to write a novel. Bora has stories to tell.
Avi laughed. Ratchet didn't. He was looking around the property.
Hey, where is your dad? I need to talk to him about something.
You're not going to tell him?
Relax. I'm on your side.
That's what I'm afraid of, Avi said, as Uncle Ratchet wandered off, looking for his younger brother. Chapter 4. Avi's Song.
What kind is this, Avi?
A youthful voice asked. Avi turned to find Margaret, his kid sister, holding a snake, thick as her arm, high over her head. Avi was still thinking of his conversation with Ratchet a few moments earlier. He reached for the snake and took it from her grasp. She explained,
I found it near the house. There's a whole nest of them. What kind is it, Avi?
Hey, little fellow, Avi said, as he took and held the arm-length serpent up to the sunlight. The snake crawled and stretched out the length of Avi's arm, tickling him as he slithered. Avi laughed at the sensation. He pointed to a place behind the head.
See, Margaret, you can tell what kind of snake he is by the neck. See how it's wider here?
Avi pointed to its side where the body flattened out.
If you tickle him, he'll do a dance for you.
Avi gently ran his fingers over the snake's belly until the creature raised up and looked him in the face. He broadened his neck until he looked striking.
So what kind of snake is it, Avi?
Margaret asked once more. Her face was beaming with enthusiasm. Avi hesitated, knowing it would build anticipation.
It's called a cobra, he said. Here, he's friendly.
He reached out to let the snake crawl onto Margaret's shoulder. The cobra slithered happily to her new companion. She giggled as she glided over the tender skin under her cheek. Its tongue tickled her ear and grazed the side of her head. Her laughter grew more exuberant.
Margaret, where is Dad? He's with Mama. Baby's due today,
Margaret said, which jostled her new snaky pet. That lit off another round of laughter as the cobra topped her head and began down the other side of her face. He patted her on the shoulder.
Have fun, sis.
She ran off, shouting the names of her siblings. She obviously couldn't wait to share her discovery with them.
Dad,
Avi called. He stepped through the back door of the house, calling once more. It was a modest cabin some ancestors had helped his father build. The wood was rubbed shiny where he let his hand slide over the open doorframe. A squeak from the noisy floor announced his entrance. Into the open-air cabin spilled shafts of amber light. He reached for the light switch out of habit, even though the room was bright.
Dad?
He called through the length of the house. Avi paused only a moment to listen.
Dad?
He called as he walked through the frame of the front door.
Over here, Avi,
his dad called. He heard his voice before he saw him. Glancing toward the small fruit orchard, he stepped over the threshold with a smile. It could have been a painting.
Oh, did I miss the fun?
Avi asked. He had been around for many of his siblings' births.
The fun is just beginning,
his dad said.
Your mother did great.
It was a wonderful birth,
Avi's mother said. She was leaning against a trunk in the orchard. She had the radiant glow that the ecstatic bliss of giving birth brought. She held in her arms a brand-new baby boy. Avi's father knelt next to her and took the baby in his arms.
What is his name?
Avi asked.
Galleon.
That's a nice name,
Avi said.
Avi, honey, could you hold Galleon for a moment while I go get cleaned up?
His mother asked.
Sure.
Taking his new brother in his arms, he knelt. The warmth, the rose-colored cheeks, the soft touch, it made Avi wonder if he would have his own sons and daughters one day. Inevitably, the thought led to Amelie Patel, the prettiest girl he knew. He was careful not to let the thought linger long.
I'm going to check on your mother.
Hey, Dad, Avi said, could we talk in a bit?
Sure, son,
his dad said as he walked out of the orchard and into the house. Avi was alone with the baby, cradling him gently. Warmth surrounded his body like a blanket as he stared into the cooing boy's face. Avi glanced about to make sure no one else was around. When he confirmed he and his baby brother were alone, he swayed. Music bubbled up from deep inside. With the baby's smile, he felt the river of song rumbling upward from deep waters. Music gushed from him like a valley flood after mountain rains. He hummed, whimsical and free. The lyric dripped from the sweet melody. The song vibrated through his body like wet thunder. Under a vast sky, beneath fervent grace, you're the fruit of an ever-growing vine. You fortify your father's family's faith. You are born in the cradle of the divine. A boy of the orchard, a child of the sun, you've woken eternally, mighty Galleon. Chapter 5. A Trade. "Where is Dad?" Avi asked when his mother returned without him. "Bora was getting into the sweet drip patch. He went to shoo him out," his mother said. She took Galleon from Avi's arms and cradled him softly. "Is everything okay, honey?" his mother asked, dividing her attention between the new baby and her teenage son. "Yeah, I just need to talk to Dad about something." "It wouldn't have to do with the Patel girl, would it?" she asked. "Well, you know your father and I got married at your age." "I know, Ma. He's been hinting around about it since I was 13. "Hey, there's my boy," came the voice of his father. "That bear, I tell you what, he got to trampling our best gum squash blooms. I had to give him a scolding. Avi, you may want to check on him in a while. His feelings might have been a little hurt." "Okay, Dad." "Well, what?" Avi asked. "You said you wanted to talk to me," his dad said. "Yeah, but, Instead of launching, Avi looked at his mother, who was standing close, still listening. "All right, man to man. Okay, let's, his father said as he looked toward the forested tree line. "Do you want to walk the perimeter with me, and we could talk?" "Sure." Avi followed his father toward the edge of their small farm. They wove along the dividing line between the crops they had planted a week earlier. Things grew so fast that by the time everything was planted, it was already time to harvest. Even the smallest farm in the region, which was probably Lennis Shakir's place, could feed a family of 50. "Probably have to harvest after Sabbath again, don't you think?" Avi asked. "Looks like it." "We could try planting some Dralo. I heard there's a new hybrid seed that grows really sweet." "That's not a bad idea," his dad said. "Is that what you wanted to talk to me about? Planting Dralo stalks?" "No," he admitted. "I wanted to talk about—" Avi tried, but got shy. "I know, son." "So, you have thought about it overnight. Do you think you could arrange it?" "An arranged marriage can be a great honor to the king, just like anything we do. But—" His father bent down to pick up a rock. Avi felt the pause, heavy with jagged edges. "But what?" "But I've been talking to your Uncle Ratchet." "Oh, no." "Well, he knows you better than most. Half the time I think you two have a couple dozen secrets you share. Ratchet can't keep a secret."